So when we speak about the behavior of individuals or behavior of investors, participants in the financial market, we assume that they act rationally and they exhibit some rational behavior. And economists also assume that the participants in the market do act rationally. But it has been observed, what I already have mentioned, it has been observed that people do not act rationally. Rather, it has been found that people exhibit behaviors which are very close to irrational, far from rational behavior. And because the people participate in the market, and when the participants in the market act irrationally, it is found that market is not behaving rationally also, because market represents how people behave. So it has been found that market uh, is not representing that individuals or people are also acting rationally. So it has been found that the market is representing something which indicates that the market participants are acting irrationally. And the thing is that it is not the thing that there is a very extreme dimension. One is irrational and another one is rational. So when we speak about the irrational behavior of people, or when we mention that people exhibit some irrational behavior, we do not mention that people exist in this point. Rather, we have to understand that people are in the point between these 2 points. I mean, people are in the middle of these 2 points, some extent rational, some extent irrational, but the proportion of irrationality is bigger. So it's not the case that people are fully irrational. To some extent, people behavior sometimes is rational, and to some extent it is irrational. But when the proportion of irrationality is bigger, we have to identify, or we try to recognize that this person or these people are behaving irrationally. So about which people we are interested in the behavioral finance, we are particularly interested with the people who are investors. We are not interested with all the people. We are particularly interested with the people who are investors. And the expectation is that people are rational. This is the very first assumption in the microeconomics, all theories in microeconomics, that people are rational. But in reality, we find that people are not rational as expected. People are to some extent irrational, or sometimes people are very much irrational. And in assumption of microeconomics, it is also expected that market reflects the information. That's why market is efficient. Market reflects, and the market price reflects the information efficiently, or market price reflects the information instantly. So that is the expectation, that market is efficient. But in reality, we find that market is not as efficient as expected. Rather, market is close to inefficient. So you know very well from your finance course that there is no concept like inefficient market. Rather, the term is kind of the weak form of market efficiency, strong form of market efficiency, and the strong form of market efficiency. So when the market, form of efficiency is a strong form, we try to understand that it is kind of efficient market. And when the market is close to weak form of efficiency or semi-strong form of efficiency, we try to understand that market is close to inefficient. So when we say that investors are not rational or investors do not behave rationally, the question is that how can we conclude that someone is not behaving rationally? Someone is not behaving rationally. How can we conclude that? So we can conclude that someone is not behaving rationally only if we know what is rational. If we know what is rational, in that case, we can compare the rational behavior with the irrational behavior. Then we can confirm that someone is not doing the rational behavior. That's why their behavior is irrational. So what is rational? That is the big question. And we have learned the rational behavior from the economics, that what should be the rational. So in neoclassical economics, which is the dominant form of economics, and I already have mentioned that uh, finance, the foundation of finance is from the economics, and the behavioral finance foundation is also from the behavioral economics. So in the economics, there are different classification of based on the theories provided and based on the economists who have given the theories and the years in which they belong. So you probably have heard about the classical economics, new classical economics, modern economics. You probably have heard about this classification. So out of this classification of economics, which one is still dominant? That is the new classical economics, which thinks that the market price of anything is function of demand and supply. So both demand and supply will play the role in determining the price of any product or any service in the market. So it can only be possible when the participants in the market act rationally. So before understanding which behavior is to understand which behavior is kind of rational or close to rational, we have to refresh our mind what has been asked or what has been argued in neoclassical economics about the behavior of the people. In that case, we can understand that what is rational. So behavioral finance, it starts from teaching us to understand what is rational. Then after the understanding of this rational thinking, we can understand what is not rational. So without knowing what is rational, we will not understand what is irrational. So in neoclassical economics, it has a good number of assumptions, but the assumptions in which we are right now very much interested, these are the three assumptions which you are seeing in the screen. So first assumption is that people have rational preference. People have rational preferences when people are presented a number of outcomes before them. Say, I will explain in detail. For example, right now, this is the time of taking snacks. So you may have several options for taking snacks. One option can be, for example, tea plus something snacks item. Another snack item can be pizza plus some beverage, or another snack items can be just tea plus something bread and or biscuit, these things. So if we consider the outcome for the snacks, how many outcomes I have written here? How many outcomes I have written here? This is number 1, this is number 2, this is number 3. 3 outcomes.
3, sir.
We have
Three outcomes.
okay. So the thing is that what has been asked here, that, okay, let me take another color. Okay, so when we say that people have rational preferences, it means that we know why we should prefer this one, or why we should prefer this one, or why we should prefer this one. And we have to know it is not the way that, for example, I'm taking tea plus something snacks, I'm preferring this. But if it is the thing that I do not know why I'm preferring this, I'm not exposing something, or I'm not saying something which is rational. I need to have some reason why I'm preferring tea plus snack over pizza plus something beverage. So I have some reason, and that reason should be in your mind, or there is no right or wrong choice. Okay, there is no choice, there is no wrong that someone prefers pizza plus beverage over tea plus snacks. There is no wrong. Okay, but the thing is that people must have preference among the possible outcomes, and that should look like something rational. I will explain more detail later. And the second one is that uh, economists think that people are something like greedy persons. People always feel that they want to maximize their utility. They want to maximize their utility, and it is their ultimate objective. There should not be any other objective which supersedes this objective. And from the economics, it is very evident to you that economists always look for the ways how can it maximizes the utility of the people. And from the farm perspective, farms get maximum utility when farm can maximize their profit. So this is the number 2 critical assumptions of neoclassical economics, which are related to understanding of rational behavior. Number 3 is when there are information of all possible events, people decision should not be influenced when the decision is presented in different way. When people have all relevant information, they should take some decisions which are independent of other forces or other factors. I'll give you some example that how people decision should be independent. So let me elaborately explain the number 1, that people have rational preferences. What does it mean? For example, I have mentioned about 3 type of snacks. So let me take the short form, the S1 for tea plus snacks, S2 for pizza plus beverage, S3 for what? S3 for what kind of snacks? I have taken the number 3 outcome.
Tea plus biscuits.
Biscuits or bread. Okay. So people should be preferring their options in a way. For example, people should define their preference in this way. People should write in this way. For example, I like tea plus snacks. I prefer tea plus snacks over pizza plus beverage. In that case, can you understand the meaning of this sign? Is it greater than?
Greater than.
Uh,
Preferable.
it here we are not reflecting the greater than or less than. We are reflecting that this one is preferred over this one. That's why we are using this symbol, okay, which looks like the greater than symbol. Okay, now the question is, what does this greater than sign mean here? It means a strong preference. What does it mean? A strong preference. I strictly prefer tea plus snacks over pizza plus beverage. What kind of word I have mentioned? Strong or strict preference. So if I like to highlight this, that what kind of a strong or a strict preference means, if my mom gives me pizza plus beverage, I will not take the afternoon snacks on that day. I will only take snacks if she gives me something tea plus some snacks like, say, for example, shingara, samosa, this kind of puri, this kind of snacks I strictly prefer. Have you got the meaning of a strong preference or a strict preference? Have you got the meaning of this symbol? That how can we prefer some outcome over some
Yes,
outcome,
sir.
another outcome? Okay. Now, for example, I have added this symbol here. You see this symbol? Okay. Now, when we add this symbol below the greater than sign, what do we mean in the mathematics? What do we mean by this symbol in mathematics?
Greater
Greater
than
than
or
or
equal to.
equal.
Greater than, okay. Greater than concept has been cleared here. When I just have added, what will be the additional meaning for this?
So equal
That
to.
that
Okay.
might be equal to that.
Equal. Can you write in this way? Indifferent. Okay. Indifferent. Is it the same meaning what you are looking for? Indifferent. I have no problem if my mom gives me either tea or a tea plus snacks or pizza plus beverage. I'm indifferent between these two. In that case, I should add this symbol. I should add this symbol. Okay. So in terms of preference, the wording is, when we add this, it should be understood that it's kind of weak preference. Though the snacks 1 is preferred over snacks 2, but after adding this sign, the preference is now strong or strict, or it has become weak preference.
Weak,
It
sir.
has become weak preference. Okay. Now the thing is that if we use this symbol, if we use this symbol, in that case, it is more appropriate to use the indifference term here. But if we use this here, my preference is not strict, my preference is not strong. Rather, either I prefer S1 over S2, or my preference are equal. My preference can be termed as weak preference. But if I write this, the term is more appropriate, which I wrote earlier, the indifference. Okay. So I have no problem if I have been provided with the tea plus snacks or pizza plus beverage. Okay. So have we got it? How can we define our preference? How should we define our preference? We should define our preference in this way. So what does it mean in reality? In reality, it means that we know why we are preferring someone over someone, or we are preferring someone over another one. For example, I prefer Mr. A over Mr. B. This assumption is asking that you know why you are preferring A over B, or if you prefer B over A, you know that you prefer B over A, or if you are indifferent between A and B, you also know why you are indifferent between A and B. And if you feel that A is preferred over B, but the preference is kind of weak preference, or kind of the preference is very close to equal, in that case, I know it should not be the way I do not know to whom I prefer. What do you think? In the real world outcomes, do we select the outcome always based on thinking of preference always?
No, sir.
So that is the number one attack to the assumptions made by the classical economics, or you would say the new classical economics also, and the finance also. So rational thinking is always starts in this way. I should have a valid reason, and the reason may be kind of very silly reason. The reason can be a very silly reason why I am preferring over A over B, but there should be some reason about which I'm aware of. If it should not be such a way that I do not know why I prefer A over B, or why I prefer B over A. Okay, so have we got the first assumption? It is kind of refreshing of your memory regarding your microeconomics, and I would relate it with how this is connected to the rational behavior. Okay, so apart from this understanding, we should understand two conditions of preference, or two axioms of preference, which is a more appropriate word used in the economics text and in the finance text. It is kind of some kind of conditions what we have to keep it in our mind when we think of a rational choice. Okay, so first condition is the preference should be complete. The preference should be complete. So what does it mean? For example, I have uh, three stocks: stock A, stock B, stock C, these three stocks. So I should define my preference in a way in which no outcome is remaining to be included in my preference. For example, if I prefer A over B, I should reconnect my writing pad. Okay. If I prefer A over B, or I prefer B over C, or if it is like that, my preference are kind of this kind of weak preference. Is there any outcome which has not been included in my preference list? I have asked a question.
Sir,
Is there any
Sir,
outcome
A
which
over C.
yes,
Hmm?
A over C.
A over C.
is it not understandable from these two equations? I mean, it is not a very independent
sir.
kind of equation. It's kind of implied equation from these two, right? A over C. Is it? Should it be written or it should be implied from here?
So no need to write.
It's implied, sir.
Sir, implied.
Okay, fine. So this is the concept of completeness. And next one is transitivity. My writing pad is causing some disturbance for unknown reason. That's why I'm changing the port. Okay. Okay, next one. For example, the next one is transitivity. Okay, we have got the completeness axiom. The second one is transitivity. So transitivity means what we already have understood from here, but that is the concept from transitivity. It means that the preference should be consistent. The preference should be consistent. For example, if I write A over C and A over B, A over B, A over C. In that case, what can we write about the preference for B and C only?
We cannot relate C and B.
We cannot relate B and C. Okay. So let me make it easier. If I prefer A over B and I prefer B over C, can I have preference C over A?
No, sir.
Why?
No.
It's implied that I prefer A over B, so and B over C. So in general, it's preferable A over C.
So it is actually contradictory because B,
Okay.
I'm preferring A over B, but again I'm saying that the C is preferred over A. So it is contradicting the preferences I have made before.
Okay. So does it happen in real world that people prefer A over B and also prefer B over C, but when people are presented C and A, people exhibit or people mention their preference in a way which indicates that they are preferring C over A.
Yes, sir, it may happen, and that is why
Yeah, it can
irrational
happen.
preferences.
Can you give me an example from your personal life that you do or you exhibit this kind of behavior? You have confirmed that it can happen. So I'm just looking for some real life event where it can happen or it actually happened in our life.
Sir, maybe in stock market, when people want to buy stocks, they make such kind of irrational preferences. Like someone is saying that this is better than this, but while buying the share, they buy the one that is bad. Many, I think similar things happen in our stock market. Maybe the
Okay.
trend, positive trend is showing in one share, but we are buying the one someone is saying good, which may not be positive in trend.
Okay, I would encourage you to look for the real examples which violates this axiom. I will encourage you to look for the examples. You can discuss among yourselves also to get the reasons which violates these classical assumptions made by the economists in their theories. Okay, so that will be very interesting to know. And let me give you another interesting conditions which is violated. Okay. Okay. Uh, if a face wash price is, for example, $2, and same another piece of same face wash price is $2, what should be the price for two pieces of the same face wash? 4 or 3 or 5?
So four.
Huh?
So four,
Four.
four, sir.
4. But you sometimes see that buy 2 at $3 price. Do you see this kind of offer
Yes,
in
sir.
super shop?
Frequently.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So what does it mean? The summation or the summation system actually don't work in real world, or people do not follow the summation. But if you are a rational thinker, it cannot happen. It should be 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2 should be equal to 4, right?
Yes,
But
sir.
what does it mean in mathematical term? 2 plus 2 has become equal to 3 in the real world, right? If you
Yes, sir.
if you go for individual buying, I mean, you have bought this separately and you have bought this separately, how much it would cost?
So four.
4. But when you have bought together, you have
It costs three.
paid only 3. It cost 3, but it actually happens, right?
Yes, sir.
But it does not confirm the rational thinking, right? Okay, so let's continue. Can you recall the second assumptions made by neoclassical economists? I hope you have got the number one. I mean, you have been able to refresh your mind for the number one. Number two, what people want to do? People want to maximize their utility. So what does utility means? What we have learned from the economics? We mean that
Consumption, sir.
people exhibit their happiness, people exhibit their satisfaction, their preferences with something machinery which is called utility. Which is called utility. It is not visible. It cannot be expressed in number, but it can be felt. It cannot be ignored. It cannot be skipped. It has existence in our life. If we feel that it does not have existence in our life, there is no existence for happiness, preference, satisfaction in our life. We acknowledge that we have existence of happiness, satisfaction in our life. If it is true, in that case, utility has existence in our life. Okay. So the thing is that economics has taught us that go for that option which maximizes your utility. Is it true? Is it the recommendation from the economics?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is the way how utility function is written. This is the way how utility function is written. So what does this dot mean? For example, I have a consumption of 10,000 taka. I should put down that 10,000 taka within this bracket or within this parenthesis. Have you got it? So these are kind of, so what it will give me? It will give me the utility number. It will give me some utility number. What is it? It is kind of utility function. So function is what? Function is something machinery. What machinery does? If you give some input, machinery gives you some output. It is the task of machine, any machine. Is it true? If you give
Yes, sir.
some input, machine gives you some output.
Some output.
Okay. If you give, for example, 10,000 taka consumption to the utility function, what does utility function will give you? Utility function will give you some number. For example, the number can be something like this. So how this 10,000 taka consumption has become this number? With the help of this utility function, what we are trying to mean as a machinery, by which we express our preferences, we express our happiness, or we express our satisfaction. Okay. So if an individual prefers, can you recall the snacks 1, snacks 2? If I write in this way, what does it mean? I have more utility from bundle 1 compared to bundle 2. I mean, when I mentioned the preference in the number 1 assumptions, the preference can be expressed in terms of what? In terms of utility. Okay. So the thing is that the utility number, when the utility number is something like this, a single utility number, for example, from utility function, I just have mentioned to you that utility, it is a way how utility function can be written. So one of the typical way how utility can be described or one of the typical utility function is kind of logarithmic utility function. So you would hear about the Kara utility function, then Kara utility function. So this is the constant absolute risk aversion. This one is the constant relative risk aversion. So it is something, these are something, what should I say? These are something, these are some ways how we express our utility function in relation to our risk aversion. So one of the examples of constant absolute risk aversion is logarithmic utility function. Are you familiar with this? Are you familiar with logarithm, natural logarithm? We can express any number in terms of logarithm. I'm not asking for definition of logarithm. I'm just asking for just you are familiar with this sign that
Yes,
we can
sir.
express
Familiar.
our
Yes,
number
sir.
in terms
Yes,
of
sir.
some
Yes,
natural
sir.
logarithm. Okay. So the thing is that this is one of the ways what I will share with you that how can we use this or how can we utilize this logarithmic utility function. Another way can be, for example, if consumption can be expressed by the C, utility function can be written, the constant relative risk based on Kara utility function. It can be written in this way, 1 minus C to the power 1 minus gamma. Is it gamma? Is it gamma? This one?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So another form of utility function can be written in this way, C to the power 1 minus gamma divided by 1 minus gamma. So gamma indicates the risk aversion parameter of individual. So if an individual is very highly risk averse, that person gamma will be very high. And if the person gamma is low, that person risk aversion is low. Okay. So if you want to see the illustration of gamma, can you recall the indifference curve from your microeconomics learning? Can you recall this kind of indifference curve?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Can the indifference curve be drawn in this way? Can this same indifference curve can be written in this way? How many indifference curve I have written? These are not the parallel indifference curve. Let me identify these three indifference curve, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So can you tell me which one is more curvature?
3.
3 has more curvature. Okay. So you see, for example, if it is my optimal point, and if it is my optimal point, and say for example, I have been, for example, I have to, for some reason, I have to consume in this point, for example, I mean, here I have to change from here to here. In which case, I will be very shocked. Here, here, or here.
So 3, sir. Number 3.
3. Okay, but in one,
I'm
Less shocked.
indifferent.
it is very close to the original one, satisfaction. But when I have, I mean, my utility will be changed in a very significant way. But in the 3, it is very significant, but in 1, it is not very significant. So the extent of curvature is reflected by this gamma. So if this gamma is a very high number, it should be very, very curved. It should be in this way. If gamma is a very low number, the indifference curve should be kind of very straight or very close to a straight line. Okay. So the thing is that what I'm trying to say that we try to maximize this utility function. So what does this C mean? Can you recall I had mentioned about the 10,000 taka consumption? Utility from 10,000 taka consumption.
Yes, sir.
So I would write 10,000 taka here, say 10,000 taka here. Then for example, my gamma is for example 3. Then I would write 1 minus 3 here. Then I will get a number here. I will get a number here. That is the utility number. Okay.
So C is the consumption, right?
Sorry.
C denotes consumption.
3 is not the consumption. 3 reflects my risk aversion attitude.
Now, I mean the 10,000. What is this 10,000?
So C is my consumption. C can be your wealth level. C can be your outcome. C can be your consumption. These things. Okay.
And the 1 over C, is this one fixed or it changes?
This one.
Yes, sir.
This one is fixed.
This one is fixed. Okay.
Okay. So now the thing is that in this way, or if we write simply natural log 10,000, I will get some number here. I will get some number here.
Yes,
absolutely,
sir.
I will get some number. Can anyone tell me what is the log normal of 10,000? What is the log normal of 10,000? Hmm?
4, sir, 4.
4. Okay. My eraser is not working for unknown reason. This is the first time I'm experiencing. That's why I'm not looking for solution. Okay. So does this 4 indicate anything to you?
So is this utility level?
Okay, it is utility of something. Okay, but only this number can tell you anything.
No, sir.
So the thing is that this is the problem with the utility. So when utility gives you some number, it cannot tell you very or it cannot give you much information. But what can you do? For example, with 10,000 taka consumption, I have logarithm I have utility of 4. And from another consumption level, I'm not mentioning, from that utility, from that consumption, I'm getting utility of, for example, 3. Now, for the same individual, from one bundle of consumption, that person is getting utility 3. From another bundle of consumption, that person is getting utility of 4. Okay. Now, which one should be preferred by that individual? This bundle or this bundle? I mean, if
So
it is number 1 and if it is number 2?
So number 2 should be preferred because he is getting more satisfaction
Number
from
2 should be preferred. Okay. Now tell me, if it is, for example, the utility 3 is for the individual 1 And if it is for the individual 2, which one? The utility 4. Can you tell me which one, which individual is getting more utility? Can we tell something like that? That individual 4 is getting, sorry, individual 2 is getting more utility from compared to individual 1?
So I think it maybe no, because two preferences of the two persons are different.
Okay, thank you very much. So the utility function, this one, for example, or this one you can write, okay? Have you seen this sign? Greek sign, have you seen this sign?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay. I'm not sure whether I have written it in this way, okay, or right way. This is known as chai or shy, probably. I can't recall right now. Okay. The thing is that why I have written this, to mention that I have written here C. I have written C for what? I have written C for consumption, right? I have written C for consumption.
Consumption.
Okay. So this is not the right way. This is the right way. So in Greek symbol, consumption is reflected by this psi sign, which is pronounced as chai or she. You would see the pronunciation of this symbol. So what does this mean? This means in utility area, it indicates what? Consumption. Okay. So what I'm trying to say, the utility function is very, very individual specific. Right now, how many participants we have? We have 27 participants. If you ask me how many utility functions these 27 individuals have, the answer is 27 individuals should have 27 utility functions. So what does it mean? It means that each of the individual has their unique utility function. So if the individual is same, their utility from different bundle of consumptions can be compared. If two individuals have the same utility function, in that case it can be comparable. Otherwise it cannot be comparable. Okay, so absolute utility number gives nothing. It's meaningless. This number is meaningless. But when there is one individual and from a set of consumption bundle we have different utility numbers from the same utility function, that gives me information which is which helps me to compare the which outcome is better, compared to another outcome. So can you tell me how many ways we can express data? Have you heard about the nominal data?
Sir, 4 ways?
4 ways, absolutely. Okay. Then cardinal or ordinal?
Sir, ordinal.
Ordinal.
Should come after nominal. Then
Sir, interval.
interval. Then
Sir, ratio.
ratio. Okay. if utility number helps me to compare something, but absolutely this number has no meaning, what kind of number or what kind of utility number or what kind of data utility provides? Nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio? It helps me only to compare.
Ratio, sir.
Sir, ordinal.
The answer is ordinal. Okay. Okay. So the basic objective is to maximize the utility. Now let's discuss with a quantitative problem. Not problem, it's just kind of illustration of what we already have learned. Okay. So all numbers have been expressed in 10,000. So if it is 1, it is 10,000. If it is 50, it means it is 50 into 10,000. I mean the denomination is $10,000. So if I use my calculator and write the natural logarithm, in that case, if I write 2, I should get this number. Have you got it? So what does it mean? Utility from the $20,000 wealth. So the thing is that utility is commonly expressed in terms of wealth, that how much wealth will go up for having this consumption or for having this income or for having this outcome. Okay. So have you got it? How can we get the utility number? It is just kind of refresher of your microeconomics 101 course, right? Okay. Now, if you plot this utility numbers in a graph in vertical axis, if you take the utility in vertical axis and the wealth in horizontal axis, can we plot this number? Can we plot this number with respect to different wealths? We can we can show these utility levels. So if we show these utility levels, we are expected to see this kind of utility line or this kind of concave. Is it concave or convex? Or this kind of, what is your expectation? Any expectation that if we plot the utility number, it should look like a straight line?
It seems like it will be linear because 10 and 100 it's almost just exactly double.
It should be linear. Is it the answer? It should
Sir,
be linear.
non-linear.
It should be non-linear. Okay. So if we plot the number, it should reflect this curved utility curve. Okay. So it is the, remember, it is the reflection of logarithmic utility function, right? It's the reflection of logarithmic utility function. So if we plot the number, it should be it should look like this, not a straight line or the convex one. It should be look like a concave. So the thing is that if it is the concave line, does it remember you anything, any popular theory you have learned in the utility concept from your microeconomics course? If this line looks like a concave shaped,
Sir, is it like that the satisfaction for a certain thing decreases with the consumption of the product?
okay, kind of diminishing marginal utility.
Exactly, sir. Diminishing marginal utility.
Okay, so how can you prove that? For example, here if we have this amount of increase in wealth, this amount, same amount, this amount of increase in wealth, we get the utility of this vertical distance, but here when we have more wealth, more income, now if we increase the same amount of wealth, for example this one, the same amount, how much utility I am receiving? The lesser, same, greater compared to the previous one. So we get lesser utility when we are rich. So this is the evidence of diminishing marginal utility of income and wealth. Now the thing is that the number 3 assumptions what is made in the new classical economics is that we have all relevant information, and what we do, people take all the information and analyze the information and act based on the information. So do we behave in that way? Do we collect all the relevant information what we need? Do we collect all the information what we need?
Before consumption, yes.
Before consumption, yes.
In
No,
case
sir,
of
not
rational
always.
behavior,
Okay. Let me give you an example from the class. Right now, you are receiving service from me by taking this module, behavioral finance. Okay. So the thing is that have you collected all the information relevant for before taking this module, before getting registered in this module?
No, sir.
So we have not acquired all the information required, right? So why you have not acquired all the information? There may be a number of reasons, but one good reason is that information is not free. Information comes at cost. So what kind of cost the individuals face? Individual face when they go for collecting information. If still individual has the available information themselves, they have to incur the cost of analyzing the information. They have to incur the cost of understanding the information. It is not always true that if we have the information, we can understand or we can analyze the information properly. Okay. So, but when economics has given us the theories, what economics has assumed, economist has assumed that market participants have all the information available with themselves. Is it the assumption made by economists? Market
Yes, sir.
participants has all the information available. That's why the market is expected to behave like a like a perfectly competitive market. What is the main assumption of this perfectly competitive market? You are familiar with this, right? Perfectly competitive market. So it assumes that market participants have all the relevant information, but the reality is that it incurs cost to the market participants to accumulate, process, analyze, understand the information. So that is not the way how individuals act on information. Rather, individuals have limited information and individual act based on the limited information. So that's why the conclusion is that based on the assumptions what we have made, based on the differences in reality, individuals are mentioned not, they are not rational, or they do not behave rationally, or rather they are known as they are surrounded by bounded rationality. So from the name, it implies what? It implies that people are constrained based on what is available with them. People are constrained by what? People are constrained by their available information. Okay. So that is the reason why we term people not rational, rather people are kind of having bounded rationality. Okay. So in next session, we will talk about expected utility theory and Allais paradox, where we will see that how people violate the assumptions what we just have made based on the utility theories. Okay. So we take 10 minutes break and we will resume again at 8:30 p.m. Is it okay? So up to now, what we have discussed have been based on the uh, assumption that we know what is going to happen, or we know about our consumption, and we know what will happen to our wealth level, and that is known as that we know with certainty. But the reality is that real world is with full of uncertainty, and we do not know what kind of consumption we are going to face or what kind of income level we are going to have. So in that case, the utility concept what we have discussed may not work, because it's very simplistic. It assumes that it knows the expected, it knows the outcome certainly. In reality, we use the concept which is known as expected utility, which deals with the uncertain outcome, because outcomes are not clearly known. So we have to think of which outcome are expected to happen and what are the associated probability of each of this outcome. So expected utility theory helps us to take the summation of the multiplication of probability and with the associated outcome, and each respective outcome. And if you get the sum weighted value, and based on that we assume that what is, or we get the utility value based on which we can make decisions. So this expected utility theory, based on the expected utility theory, we think of what price we should pay to a certain product, or to pay to a certain service, or to pay to a certain financial product, that this financial product, say, gives me will give me $2 with 2% probability, say $4 with 30% probability here, 20% probability here. Okay, $5 with, say, 40% probability. Then say with 10% probability, there is a chance that I have to incur loss of 10. So can we get the sum weighted of this? So if we multiply each of this, the probability of each of the outcome, and get the sum weighted of all of this, we will get the expected wealth. And at the same time, what can we do if we take this outcome to the utility function? For each outcome, we will get a utility value. Can we recall the utility function? Can you recall utility function? If we
Yes, sir.
take this outcome to the utility machinery, what we'll get? We get utility for here, we get utility number here, we get utility number here, we get utility number here. In that case, if we remove this, what we'll get? We get something which is which will be expected utility. So that is the concept of expected utility. Based on the expected utility, we calculate or we make decisions. So this expected utility concept has been popularized by John von Neumann and Oscar Morgenstern, these two people. And in finance, you are common. It is very common, but we do not know what is the reason that each of the theories has been given by two people together, not a single person. So in most of the cases, two people have jointly have given one theory. But the origin of this expected utility theory stems from the Bernoulli trial concept. You probably have completed the probability chapter in your statistics module, where you are familiar with the Bernoulli trial, where there are only two possible outcomes. And this person has given the preliminary concept of the expected utility theory, but it has been later developed by John von Neumann and Oscar Morgenstern. So what you will try to see, the history of these theories of expected utility theory. Actually, we need to see this history if we are in finance major. So the thing is that it comes from the fact that the real world is uncertain, and when people face uncertainty, people look for the option which is more certain. That's why people are known as risk averse. People tend to remove the risk from their options by picking the option which is which involves them with low risk or no risk. So for example, is there anyone who has experience of playing gamble? Anyone? We have a fund manager. Do you have experience of playing gamble?
I would say I don't have that experience, but yeah, I have to take expected risks.
Okay, so you have taken expected risk. Okay, that is good, but how can we differentiate gamble from the speculation?
Okay, so if there is no fundamental value, but the share price might go up for some unknown reasons.
Okay.
You already have said that every information has a price. So there might be something price sensitive that is not public to the market. The information after that is being public uh, might change the view of the company to the public and increase or decrease the demand. That let's say for example, in the recent time, a few days back, Beximco published that they will uh, they will issue a sukuk bond and raise 3,000 crore from the market. So initially, it was expected that the price would go up, but it has been observed that for the last 2 days, the price has actually gone down. So the gamble here could be that
In
there is
gamble,
a price sensitive information
you do not have the
that
information, right? You are assuming
right,
very high risk in gamble,
right,
and
right,
there is very high risk of losing money and very
right,
little probability of gaining, right?
gaining, right.
In gamble. Okay. So if I take outcome of an event with the uh, coin toss, say if if the tail comes, you will get $2. If tail comes in the first chance, you will get $2 in this way. Or if tail comes in the second chance, you will get 2 to the power 4. If tail comes only in the fifth chance, you will get 2 to the power 5. I mean, have you got it? That the outcome is base value is 2, but it will vary based on the number of trial in which the tail will appear. So do you think it looks like a gamble?
Looks like it, sir.
It looks like a gamble. Now, if I give you this kind of option, how much you should pay? Have you got the option?
Payment should be, I got it. The payment should be less as the risk is higher.
Okay, payment should be less. Okay, so if you calculate the expected outcome, what should you do first? You should calculate the utility from each of this outcome.
Right, right.
Each of this outcome, we should calculate the utility first. Then for each of the outcomes utility, we should multiply the probability for each of this outcome. How much probability that we will get the tail in the first trial, how much probability that we will get the tail in the second trial. We should put the probability in each of this case. Okay.
Yes.
Then we have to put the utility also. Then based on it, we should determine how much price I should pay.
True.
Okay. So that is the way how the expected utility theory was developed, and the gamble of which example I just have shared with you, that is the gamble which has been popularized by this one, St. Petersburg paradox. Okay, so it is really a paradox. It's not really a paradox, but it has been popularized as a paradox because there has been no contradiction that how much we should pay or how much an individual should pay when he will be provided with this kind of gamble. So what is our discussion related to this? That we make decisions under uncertainty, and we have to calculate our expected utility based on the probability of each outcome and utility of all utility of the associated utility of the respective outcome. So there are some additional axioms. Can you recall we have understood two axioms in earlier slides? One was the complete, another one was transitivity. Okay, so there are other axioms which are based on which expected utility theory has been developed. So let me give you example of some other axiom. For example, continuity. Continuity is such that say we have a very high outcome which we define by WH, and another outcome which is WL, low outcome, and we have probability for each of these high outcome and low outcome, and we have probability for this and we have probability for this, and we have certain utility from here and we also have certain utility from here. So what will happen, we will get expected utility from this after having the sum. We'll get a expected utility from this well. So but the thing is that it has been mentioned or it has been observed that in between high level of wealth and low level of wealth, there is a level of wealth which we will denote as W star, from which we will get the same utility. We will get the same utility. So this is the concept of continuity. So there is no gap, that by combining these two extreme outcome, you can discover or you can invent another outcome in between these two, which will give you the same utility. And rationality is a very clear what we have discussed so far, that always the preferred outcome which has a higher probability will be preferred over another preferred outcome which has a low probability. So the final one is independence, which is interesting to understand. That say for example, I told you that I would give you the example of independent axiom. Say for example, I prefer biryani over plain rice. Okay, so is it clear what is my preference? Biryani over plain rice. Obviously plain rice with it will come with some meat or fish. Okay, meat or fish. So it should be written in this way so that you will not get confused. Rice is with some meat or chicken, meat, chicken or fish. So which one is preferred here? Biryani is preferred here. Now, say for example, I have given an option to you that some bharta will be provided to you. In addition to these two items, you can pick either biryani or plain rice. But when you have heard that I will prefer, I will give you bharta in addition to this two. For example, bharta will be added here and bharta will be added here. So same bharta has been added to the two sides, same bharta. So now which one will prefer? Your preference will remain constant to biryani, or you will now prefer this one? What do you think? Have you got the issue?
I think getting the bhatta doesn't make any difference to me because I prefer biryani already.
Huh.
I'm not eating rice.
Okay, but there are some people who prefer, who may switch their choice when the bhatta will be provided. What do you think?
Could be, could be.
Is it a kind of possible situation?
Yes, sir, obviously.
When the bhatta will be provided to some people, they will switch from bhatta to plain rice. But originally they were preferring what? They were preferring biryani over plain rice. But when bhatta has been provided, they are no longer preferring biryani. They are now switching to rice, though they could take the bhatta with biryani. But they are not no longer preferring biryani with bhatta, right? So what has happened? A third factor, which is same here, same bhatta here, same bhatta here. But when it has been added to the original preference, the preference has been changed. So the independence axiom is telling that your preference should not be changed when the same outcome has been added to the outcome which has a base on which the preference has already been made. Okay, so when bhatta has been added, I am no longer independent because my my preference has been changed. So that is the way how independence is affected. Okay, so no third factor should influence my preference when it is added or when it is combined with the two options what we are right now considering. So you can take other examples from your real life. Say for example, you are preferring investing in stock market over bond market, but if it is like that, insurance will be provided to you. Life insurance will be provided to you, an added product with your investment. But when insurance has been added, you have switched from a stock investment to bond investment. So actually it occurred. I'm trying to give you a kind of plain example. If you look for the examples for independence axiom, you are likely to see such kind of examples. Okay. So when we talk about uncertainty, though we are very we feel very comfortable to talk about uncertainty, but there are clear difference between risk and uncertainty. One clear difference is that in real world or in financial world, and when we make decisions, actually we deal with risk, not uncertainty, because in risk it is possible to clearly define how many outcomes are possible. For example, 4 outcomes are possible, so we can clearly define these 4 possible outcomes. But in uncertainty, we cannot define the possible outcome. And in risk, what our fund manager has just mentioned, that it is possible to calculate the risk, but in uncertainty, it is not possible to quantitatively compute what amount of uncertainty. So that is the distinction between risk and uncertainty. And uncertainty is very kind of subjective description. And when we talk about risk, risk should be very specific, and it should be kind of, we need to have a very objective mindset in evaluating risk. But it is not possible to have the objective measurement of uncertainty. So let's apply the expected utility theory, and that how expected utility theory is applied in the decision making process, and we will see that how it is violated. So suppose we have a low wealth outcome where we will have $50,000 only, and we have another uh, outcome which we are terming as high wealth outcome, which is $1 million. So each of these outcome has associated probabilities. For this outcome, we have 40% probabilities. For this outcome, we have 60% probabilities. So when we get an outcome, or when we define an outcome with some certain probabilities, we define each of that outcome as a single prospect. We'll talk about prospect theory in next class. That's why it is very clear that what we need to learn about the concept of prospect. So outcome with associated probability is known as prospect. So how many prospects right now we have? We have 2 prospects. So we can summarize this outcome and probabilities in this way. This 40% probability is for the adjacent outcome. Adjacent to which number? Adjacent to this probability number. And the last number, which is 1 million, for this 1 million outcome, the probability can easily be determined by subtracting the 0.4 from 1. What is that value? That value is 0.6. So if we can think of another outcome, what we'll have in low wealth condition, we will have $100,000, and in high outcome we have how much? 1 million outcome. So we also have the probabilities associated with each of this outcome, and we have still 2 prospects. So can you recall the logarithmic utility function? Is it in this way, or I have written in wrong way? Which one is correct? This one or this one?
First one.
This one.
The second one, sir.
Okay. So if I ask you that, can we determine the expected utility from these outcomes? Say, for example, is it possible that if we take the logarithm of this low outcome 50,000 and logarithmic outcome of 1 million and multiply this number by what? Associated probability 0.4 and 0.6. Is it possible?
Yes, sir.
What is it inside the bracket? Inside the bracket, it is the utility associated with this outcome, and inside this bracket, it is the utility of this outcome And what we have multiplied with each of these utility, we have multiplied the associated probabilities. So when we have multiplied by the associated probabilities, what we are expecting to get? What is it? Expected utility. Now, for the same individual who has this one possible one option, this one is another option. Now, between these two, which one is expected to be preferred by the person? In the case in which the expected utility is greater, which one would be preferred? The expected utility
Number two, utility. I mean,
is preferred is in this option. That's why it is preferred. So have we got it? How economics is telling us to make decisions under uncertainty also based on the expected utility theory. So based on the expected utility theory, we get that expected utility from this one is greater than this one. Number two is greater than number one. That's why you are preferring the number two. Okay. Now let's talk about the risk attitude in relation to the utility concept, what we have discussed so far. So is there anyone who is preferring stock A over stock B out of our 26 participants? There are two stocks, both are providing same expected return, but they are different in terms of their risk level.
so then stock B. I would go for stock B.
Choose stock B as that's the lower risky and the same
Okay.
return.
Okay, at the same return, we are preferring the less riskier. Okay, so that is the extent or that is the essence of the people behavior to have the risk aversion tendency. So between the risky and the less risky option, people always try to go for the one which is less risky, and that's why economics is telling that people are risk averse in general. Okay, but do you think that people buy lottery?
Yes, sir.
What is the chance of getting 40 lakhs from lottery? What is the probability number? 50%, 1%, or
0.001%, something like 1 in a few million.
is this one like this you want to say?
Something like that, sir. G.
Something like that. Okay, but do people stop buying lottery?
Yes.
No, sir.
Have you heard anything? Have you heard any time that some lottery issuer saying that they couldn't sell their lottery fully?
No, sir. People still go on buying lottery.
People go for buying lottery. So instead of knowing that the probability of having good outcome from the lottery is very, very, very insignificant, why people go for buying lottery? Do actually they are risk averse, or they actually are risk seeker?
They are seeking more risk, actually.
They are
So,
seeking risk. They are not risk averse always, right?
right.
But economics has taught us that people are generally risk averse, and people risk aversion does not change across their wealth. Does not change across their wealth. If people are risk averse when they are poor, they are also risk averse when they are rich. But behavioral finance has taught us that people risk attitude varies from time to time based on their level of wealth. If their risk aversion attitude or their risk attitude varies based on their level of wealth, but we will see in the next class in prospect theory that this is the concave shape utility curve, but prospect theory has shown us that the risk aversion attitude varies based on the wealth level. That's why their curve is not like as expected by the economist. Okay, so how can we relate the utility concept with for knowing that whether a person is risk averse, risk seeker, or risk neutral? Okay, so let's do some graphs. Okay, this is the vertical axis, is it? Or is it the vertical axis?
So this is the vertical.
This is the vertical, this is the
And
horizontal.
the horizontal.
Okay, you are with me. Okay, so for example, let's think of low wealth level. Let's think of another wealth level that is high kind of wealth level. Okay, now if we measure utility here, can we express the utility comes from wealth level in the vertical axis? Is it possible to express the utility from the wealth level in the vertical axis, or we cannot do it? I hope we can do it. Okay, so say, what do you expect? The utility stems from the low level of a wealth is expected to be low, medium, or higher compared to this one?
Low.
Low. For example, I have put here. Remember, this comes from utility function. It is coming from some utility function that where the dot will be put. Okay, so let's think of the utility is associated with this level of wealth is here. So can we connect these two dots? This should be a straight line. Assume that it is in a straight line. I'm doing the manual drawing. Okay, it is in a straight line. Okay, now if we think of the expected wealth is here, can you tell me the probability for low wealth is higher, or the, okay, I'm not asking for the probability, I'm just asking for what is the approximation of the probability for low wealth level and high wealth level? If you give me just one number for anyone, I can calculate the difference for another one.
So the probability of gaining high wealth is higher.
Higher.
Seems so.
Okay, you are thinking so. Okay, is there any other opinion who is thinking that the probability for low wealth outcome is higher? Very quick, we will be running out of time if we take more time.
I think it can happen both in both
It
ways.
can happen both. Okay, I mean, I do not know that how it can happen for both. The answer is in which case it should be higher. I mean, the probability for wealth, in which wealth outcome, the probability will be higher. Which is more likely to happen if the expected wealth is here?
Seems like the
The
higher wealth
for
generation
higher,
is
sir, for
closer to
higher.
the
For
closer
higher.
to the mark. So I'm edging toward the higher part.
Okay, I have got your point, but I'm asking for other opinion.
Is the same because as it is tends, it is as the expected wealth is tends to the higher part, so the probability for the higher utility goes for WH.
Okay. Okay, that is good. That if as when expected wealth is closer to the high wealth outcome, the probability for high wealth outcome should be higher. That's why it is closer to here. Okay. So can you tell that for expected wealth? Okay, let me write down the utility associated with here. Are you understanding how I am drawing this graph?
So one question.
Are you asking anything?
Yes, sir. I'm asking like earlier we saw the graph was non-linear, but beginning of this graph you said it's linear, right?
Yeah.
The well versus utility graph was non-linear, but are we assuming this graph is linear?
We are right now assuming that it is kind of a straight line. Okay, we'll see. We'll see
Yes.
that for the differences in the people risk attitude, it will either curve to upward or curve to downward, convex or concave. Okay. Okay. So now, for example, let me tell you, or let me ask you which one. Okay. I should take the eraser. Okay. Unfortunately, it has been removed. Okay. My eraser is not working. That's why I'm facing some problems. Okay, this is the utility associated with expected wealth, and this is the utility associated with high wealth level, and this is the utility associated with low wealth level. Now let me ask you a question. So you have concluded that this expected wealth level comes with some uncertainty because there has been probability associated with low outcome of and there is probability associated with high outcome. Okay, can you tell me that if I give you the offer that you will get this expected wealth, this amount of wealth with no uncertainty, with no uncertainty, in that case you will get same utility, you will get more utility, or you will get less utility?
If the uncertainty is zero, I will get the exact utility.
Sorry,
Same utility.
if uncertainty is not there,
If there is
it
no
is the,
uncertainty, I will get the exact expected utility.
remember,
Wealth.
it is the utility which comes with uncertainty. That's why I have written here expected utility from wealth. That's why it has been known as expected utility. Okay, but if I give you the same amount of wealth which comes with uncertainty, I am giving you that wealth certainly. In that case, you will get more utility, or you will get less utility, or you will get same utility.
Sir, less utility.
You will get less utility. Why?
Sir, because there is no uncertainty.
Hmm.
Mm,
So you prefer uncertainty, or you do not prefer uncertainty?
Sir, I don't prefer uncertainty.
So if you do not prefer uncertainty and I'm giving you something which has no uncertainty, so should you get more utility, or you should get less utility?
I
My
should
question is
get
clear to you?
more,
Sir, more utility, sir.
more utility, sir.
You should get more utility.
More
So if
utility.
the more utility should be received, in that case, the utility should be above the this utility. Right? This utility should be here when it comes with no uncertainty. Okay. So in that case, based on your preference, I have to draw the utility function for you in this way. Now, what should I write this? How can we define this? This one is no longer expected utility because I'm giving you it for sure. So what is it? It is for the utility which is available if I give you the expected wealth. Expected wealth, or it should be W, expected wealth. So which one is higher now? Utility from expected wealth is higher than the expected utility from wealth. Which utility is higher for you based on this drawing? Which one?
Second one, sir.
The second one is higher.
Yes,
Second
sir.
one is here. The first one is here.
So, I mean, second one is the one that you have written second. I think.
Huh?
Expected utility of wealth. Sorry, not expected. Utility of wealth is higher than the
Utility from expected wealth is higher. This one is
No,
higher.
no, sir. The right one.
Which one is higher? This one.
Yes, sir.
Look at the graph. We are measuring utility here. Which one is at the above point? This one or this one?
Sir, utility of expected wealth.
Are you getting why it has been put at a higher level compared to this one?
Sir, because there is no uncertainty.
Yeah. So that's why you are preferring this one. So you are getting more utility from here.
Utility. Yes, sir.
So should I write in this way? Or I have written in wrong way?
So this is the right way.
This is the way what should happen if the person is risk averse.
Yes.
If the opposite thing happens, if the person is, sorry, if the person is preferring the option, okay, let me come here. If the person is preferring, for example, here, this one, or if the person receives less utility from the outcome which has more, which has no uncertainty, person is getting less utility from that outcome. In that case, that person is risk averter or risk seeker.
The risk seeker.
That person is risk seeker. If the person utility has no difference, that person utility stays at the point where there is uncertainty. In that person, in that case, that person is risk neutral. That person is risk
neutral.
Okay. Now let's see that if I draw a point here, for example, here, just think of the figure we drew earlier. It is the original point what I showed to you. If I draw another point which connects with the, if I draw a point and draw a line from here to here, which connects which one? The utility line. Can we get a vertical distance here? Can you get a vertical distance here? Remember the figure I drew earlier. So from that point, from the utility of expected utility of wealth, and I connect the point with the utility curve, I get a point here, and there is a level of wealth. Can you recall this was the wealth level, expected wealth level? But you see this level of wealth, what I have written here, this level of wealth is greater than this or less than this or same of this? I have pointed out a level of wealth. Do you want me to write to draw the graph again? Or you can relate what I drew earlier? Can you recall that I pointed out this?
Yes, sir.
Is it possible to connect a line here?
Yes, sir.
Now, can you recall? Okay. Now you see, there was our expected level of wealth. Now, can we draw another line? Obviously, there is another level of wealth here, this one.
Yes, sir.
Okay. If we see the vertical distance, utility of this wealth and utility of this wealth are same.
Yes, sir.
So this level of wealth is known as certainty equivalent wealth. This level of wealth is known as certainty equivalent of wealth. So what does it mean? Just remember, just try to understand. This level of wealth is less than the expected level of wealth. Just to try to understand the characteristics of this level of wealth. Then you can define by yourself. This level of wealth is less than the expected level of wealth, but giving the investor the same amount of utility which was available to the investor from the uncertain level of outcomes, from the two uncertain outcomes. From the two uncertain outcomes, investor was getting this amount of utility by this expected wealth, regardless of the risk aversion. Regardless of the risk aversion, investor was getting this. But if I offer investor this amount of wealth, which is less than the expected wealth, but investor is getting the same amount of utility from this amount of wealth. So why investor should be satisfied at this level of wealth? Because I'm offering the investor this less amount of wealth, less from where? Less from expected level of wealth, because I'm giving the investor this amount of wealth by certainty equivalent, by certainty, I mean with certainty, there is no uncertainty. And if investor wants to get from here to here, I have to provide him the risk premium. I have to provide him the risk premium. This difference from the certainty equivalent wealth and the expected level of wealth is known as risk premium. So why I'm providing risk premium? If I provide this risk premium, instead of having the same utility, investors will pick this position. Investors will pick this position to have greater amount of wealth. Why investor is expecting to have greater amount of wealth? Because investor is now assuming higher risk, and expected a higher level of wealth is compensating investor for the risk investor has assumed. Okay, so in summary, for risk neutral investor, there should be no difference between what? Between expected utility from wealth to utility from expected wealth. And for uh, risk averse investor, what will happen? In which one will be greater? Can you recall?
The second one.
Utility from
Expected wealth.
will be greater.
Koi.
Okay. And if I write this symbol, which person I am referring?
The risk seeker.
I am referring the risk seeker person. Okay. So this is the way how can we define the risk attitude of individual based on the expected utility. Okay. So let me conclude the session just by showing you that, just by showing you a, what should I say? Just by showing you a gamble, which one you will prefer. Look at the questions, question 1 and question 2. Can you tell me which one will prefer by you? Which one will be preferred by you? Could you please put your microphone in silence if you do not give me the answer here? Which one will preferred by you between this one and this one? Don't forget the learning from, don't forget the learning from expected utility theory. Just try to understand. Which one will be preferred by you? Prospect A or prospect A star?
Prospect A. better.
Prospect,
Prospect A, sir.
A will be preferred by you, right?
Right,
Okay.
sir.
So anyone preferring prospect A star? Okay. That is good that you have preferred prospect A. Based on your understanding of the expected utility, I'm assuming that you have considered the probability and you have considered the outcome and you have multiplied the expected outcome based on what? Based on the probability weighted outcome in this way, right? Okay. So you have got that prospect A has a higher expected wealth. That's why you are preferring prospect A. Okay. Now, in question 2, which one will be preferred by you?
Sir, prospect B star looks the better option.
Prospect B looks like a better option, right?
Right, sir. B star.
B star is preferred by you. Okay. Now, you see the prospect A of question 1. Don't forget this. Can we write this in this way? Are they same? Are they same? I mean, these two
They're
are
same,
this
sir. They're same.
same?
They're same. Same, sir.
Okay, okay. Now just forget about this. What I'm doing, I'm just rewriting this here. Okay. It is as it is before, right? Okay. Now you see, this 1 million with 89% probability and this 1 million with 89% probability. These two options are very same.
Yes, sir.
This
Sir.
and this. Can we remove this? Because these are not where we should think for comparison, right? Because both are common in both sides, right?
Got it, sir. The mathematical.
Okay. Do we have anything with it?
No reward scenario, sir. But there is a 1% chance that I will not get any type of reward.
Yeah. But what is the final outcome here?
0.
So does it have any meaning to you?
No, sir.
Actually, yes, sir. That there is a 1% chance that I will not get anything.
Okay, okay. That is good. Okay. Now you see, what is remaining? We have 1 million outcome with 11% probability, right? What we
Right,
have
sir.
written?
Right.
1
Right,
million
sir.
with 11% probability.
Right.
And we have removed this. We have removed this.
Agree, sir.
Okay. Now you see which one should be okay. Does this question 1 now in this structure look similar to question 2?
Close enough, sir. Close enough. Close, sir.
Very close.
Very close, sir.
But what you preferred in question 2?
I prefer that 90% chance that I will not get any reward. That's a weird thing to choose. There was a
So
chance that I would got I would get any type of reward, 1% chance, and the second option I chose 90% chance that I would not get anything.
okay. So you see from the if we calculate our utility based on the expected utility concept from the prospect A of the question 1, we can write utility in this way, and for A star we can write utility in this way. Okay, now when you have preferred A, what we have meant, you have meant that utility from this 1 million wealth is greater than the utility associated with the A star. Okay, so if we summarize this, what is remaining, it is now 0, and it is here 0.89 to the power 1 multiplied by 1 million, and 0.10 multiplied by 5 million. And if we again summarize this, what is remaining, we see that we have removed this two, right? We have removed this and also removed this. In that case, what is happening? We have only this two left, utility from 1 million with probability 11%, and utility from 5 million with probability
10%.
10%. Because you see from here we get when we take this number outcome in the utility function, what it will give me?
The result would be 0. So
Okay.
0 can be omitted.
That's why it is the summary, right? It is
Right,
the
sir.
summary. Okay.
Right, sir.
Now, if we go for question 2, what is as it is what we saw earlier? Okay, this one. Okay. In the same way, we are applying just expected utility theory. Okay. So with this, utility is 0. Same in the same way. What is remaining? If people is choose B star, people is preferring this one, right? Prospect B. Let's try to see. Utility is also 0 from here. So what is remaining? Utility of this 5 million. Utility of this 5 million with the probability 10%. With the probability 10%, it should be greater than. It should be greater than from what? Prospect B. If people prefers prospect B, what people are thinking? People are thinking utility from this 1 million with 11% probability, right?
Right, sir.
Okay. Now it is for the B star. It is for the B star. It is for the B.
Yes, sir.
And it is for the A. And it is for what? It is for A star. Okay. Now just summarize this too. Now you see, this is for what? This is for A, and this is for A star, and this is for B star, this is for B star, and this is for B. Now compare, are we making consistent decisions?
Sir, if I'm talking about me, I chose the higher probability, not the higher reward actually. But the value does not consistent with each other. So, inconsistent, sir.
Inconsistent, you see, if it is preferred here, sorry, if it is not preferred here, right? Okay, if it is preferred here, right? If it is preferred here, it should be preferred here because the values are same.
Okay, sir.
I mean, you
right,
see,
right, sir. I got it, sir. Right.
if it is the these are the just same, right? These are just same, but it has been presented in different ways.
Right, sir.
Okay, so what we are doing here, if A is preferred here, which one should be preferred here?
B.
Hmm?
Normal B. Normal B should be preferred here.
We should be preferred B.
Right.
But what people do actually, people prefer A here, but people prefer B star here. Have you got it? That's why people decisions are inconsistent. Why inconsistent? Because people do not compare the expected utility theory, and people do not look for the reason for which two options are different. People do not look for the reason for which the two options are different. Okay, what happened actually? Can we recall this? We removed this. When we have removed this, the scenario has become very clear to us. So what people ignored what is the common component among the two options, right? People ignore what is the common component in the two options. People just look for the reasons how the two options are different. That's why people go for taking the decision which is inconsistent, that has been found by Allais Paradox or Macaulay-Allais, the authors who experimented this. So it leads to the problem which is known as framing problem or framing bias. When the same problem or same situation is presented in different ways to people, people response varies, people acts differently. For example, just to conclude our today's class, if people are presented with a glass of water, and if for example half is filled with water and half is blank, and if something is written in a statement that a glass is filled with water, and something is another place written that the glass is half empty, in both cases people perception will go different, people opinion will go different. What do you think? Obviously rational people will not do this. Are you there with me?
Yes, sir.
People responses will become different. What is expected when I present this in different ways, people responses will be different. So that is known as framing bias. We will talk more about it. I think we have taken 15 more minutes. So let me finish the session.